This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 318 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we talk about Borussia Dortmund's 2-0 win away to Werder Bremen, the upcoming game against SC Freiburg, and I will interview Jamie McAllister, who is a blind football fan and had the pleasure to visit the Westfalenstadion against Union Berlin, and he will tell us all about that trip. And for all that and more, joins me Mr. Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
I am very fine, Stefan. How are you?
I'm very fine myself, and especially fine after that 2-0 win against Bremen, because after Dortmund shellacked Eintracht Frankfurt and then had I would say, very positive Champions League night against Paris, then usually you would expect them to trip over their own dicks against the second last team on the road. But here we are with a 2-0 win, clean sheet, hardly any chances allowed. So I think that's very positive. So my mood is very good. Lars, how happy are you with that win, which I think Emre Can described as a grown-up win?
I mean, I'm basically still picturing Dortmund players tripping over their own dicks. But, I mean, 5 days after a 2-0 win over relegation battling Werder Bremen, my mood isn't necessarily informed by that performance of Dortmund, which I would agree with Emre was mature and pretty decent overall. Certainly felt in the first half that it was going to be that prototypical disappointing Dortmund road performance against a bad team, which usually means they are not going to necessarily get beaten, but, you know, perhaps draw again. But I think it's almost a testament to the newfound stability of this particular setup, these 11 players who've now started all 3 games against Frankfurt, Paris and Bremen, that, you know, there was enough metal in that team and enough stability and all that to come back in the second half, increase the tempo going forward, increase perhaps even the work rate a little bit, and, you know, the can opener, as we would say in Germany, coming from a set piece and Dan-Axel Zagadou. I mean, bad commentators would say he just wanted it more than Davy Selke, but
what would good commentators say?
Yeah, I mean,
putting you on the spot here.
I was going to say that even though that's you know, a bad cliche and trope, was kind of true to me. I mean, even Florian Kohfeldt, the Bremen coach, said after the game that, you know, it wasn't necessarily a mistake by Selke, but there was something missing there. And I think that I mean, I would probably say that it's the kind of goal you concede when you're battling relegation and the kind of goal you score when you are in a good run of form, which is true for Dortmund on the whole and especially for Zagadou in 2020. So I don't know if what commentator me would have said in that instant, but, you know, the point stands that it was the kind of goal that Dortmund probably needed to score to get over the hump in that game. But after that, it was pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah, well, probably a Zagadou over 5 seconds, completely smashing the microphone. That's what I expect from you in that spot.
Well, my only contribution to Dortmund's success is coming up with decent nicknames. So,
yeah, that's great. That's like no, I'm not gonna go there. So, where I'm gonna go though is that Florian Kohfeldt once again applied his 5-2-3. system, which nicely cancelled out Dortmund's 3-4-3. I thought he already succeeded with that, even more so in the cup. And, you know, to little surprise, Dortmund didn't adjust too much to it. I thought they were pretty content in the first half with how the game went. Osako and Selke did quite well to press both Zagadou and Hummels, and then obviously forced Dortmund to build up more over Lukas Piszczek, which is what I would do if I were the opposing coach as well. So not a big surprise there, other than that Bremen did it better than PSG, but then again, maybe also not a surprise when you have Neymar who needs to press there and is 4 kilos overweight. So, but I think Dortmund's first half was much better. They did not cede too many chances. I think Bremen only had 2 shots which were blocked. Dortmund had 2 shots which were off target by Hazard and Can. But what I liked, I think Bremen in the first 5 minutes or so, they were very wild. They pressed very high and had the control of the game, but that didn't translate for them into chances, which for my point of view from a Dortmund perspective is an improvement. I think we usually could all just view this as the standard procedure from a side like Dortmund, but this season so far has taught us that this is certainly not always the case. So I'm taking the positives where I can find them, and Dortmund's first half and just basically staying patient was good, but the one thing where they weren't maybe a bit patient enough, and I think Can even criticized it a little bit, or what might have been Witzel after the game, that they tried to force the game too vertically too often, and hence lost possession. And in the second half, I thought they were much better by controlling the ball, but as you also said, they upped the ante, and with that put Bremen a bit more on the back foot. And then opening the scoring like that is obviously great. Also great for Zagadou, because I think he created that corner with a low cross to Erling Haaland, who then forced that corner. So very nice for Zagadou to score. And right now he is, as you said, in magnificent form. So I'm very happy for him. And then I think, I don't know, Lars, I'll ask you, because I felt like the game was pretty much over already after the 1-0, or was it even, well, it was more over after the 2-0, but to me, Bremen deflated like a balloon on a bed of nails, basically. But was that more after the first or after the second goal? Because I don't remember it that clearly anymore.
Well, I mean, that balloon never had too much helium inside anyway. Going by Bremen's performance, which for a team that had, I think, lost their last 5 home games and was kind of staring down this abyss of, a relegation battle that, I mean, they did decently in the first half, but still, I mean, to not have a single real scoring opportunity at home against Dortmund, who, I mean, away from home have shipped so many goals this season, even in this new, more stable Dortmund setup, that's still a bit disappointing from Bremen's perspective, I would say. So I don't actually remember how much time there was between the 2 goals of Dortmund. So, I mean, that makes it hard for me to really pinpoint.
About 14 minutes.
Oh, that's more than I would have said from like recollection.
Well, that would mean that they deflated right away after the first goal, because that's what my takeaway is. And if you have the similar feeling, then I think that's what it was. That basically Dortmund just needed to take the lead to completely shake Bremen's confidence, because it's not easy if you're Bremen in this situation to come out of the gate like that and press Dortmund and really play with a lot of courage, and the contrast between a Bremen side playing with courage and none at all, I think we saw once Dortmund scored quite vividly. So, it was basically only a matter of how high Dortmund would win this game in the end, I presume. But credit to Dortmund for not letting Bremen back into the game with silly mistakes and staying, as you said, mature. So, obviously that was great. And then, the Haaland goal was a very nice play.
I mean, I think everybody's seen that basically it was a carbon copy of one of the goals against Frankfurt, and it's basically almost something like a signature move almost right now for Dortmund, with Hakimi and Sancho combining in this new 3-4-3 system. They especially Hakimi has more freedoms roaming forward, so he and Sancho have kind of built an even better relationship over the last few games. And I mean, as I said, kind of a signature move for Sancho to release Hakimi. He rushes toward the goal line and then always looking for that cutback pass, which I think has been a staple in Dortmund's attacking play for several years now, and still probably the most effective method of assisting goals in the modern game, I would say. I mean, especially when you don't have, a striker that's really a towering presence in the air, which we've established in previous episodes that Haaland isn't, despite his big size. I think Hakimi's cutbacks we've seen them lead to a number of goals already, and obviously Haaland's movement against poor old Ömer Toprak, a favorite of both of ours, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I mean, he made Toprak look really silly, but I think he would have made the same, or he would have made practically every centre back in the world almost look silly, just because that's I would say almost indefensible. I mean, I don't know how any centre back would have the flexibility in his hips and the presence of mind to stay with Haaland in that sequence. I think that's the kind of movement you see from a special striker, and that's certainly what Haaland has already proved to be at Dortmund. I mean, during the game, I'm not even sure I got carried away when I said that I'm not sure I've seen a striker this good at Dortmund. I mean, obviously we've been blessed as onlookers over the last few years with both Lewandowski and Aubameyang, obviously very different styles of playing, but I mean,
also been blessed by Lucas Barrios, to be honest.
Yeah, him too. I mean, they've all scored, and Alex Frey before that, and Ebi Smolarek before that. I mean, Dortmund have for a number of years now, and that stretches back like 15 seasons or so. They have always had that one striker who's pretty much good for a goal at least every 2 games, which is kind of the benchmark for Bundesliga strikers, I would say. So 15 to 17 goals a season, that's the mark of a good striker, and Dortmund have had these guys. But I mean, Lewandowski is a much better player now at Bayern than he was at Dortmund, despite being very good at Dortmund, and Aubameyang is not nearly as complete a striker as Lewandowski was, and also as Haaland is. So I think there's an argument to be made that Haaland, obviously it's very, very early, and he's only played, I think, 8 games for Dortmund and started in like 4 or 5 of them. But I think you can make the case that he's on his way anyway to establish himself as perhaps the best striker Dortmund have had, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, he had 48 touches according to who scored. And if you look at the heat map, a lot of these touches come like above the center circle, so a bit in the right center of Dortmund's field, still in Bremen's half, but still, that's quite impressive to see that his heat map isn't more ahead. That tells you, and obviously the 48 touches also tell you how involved he is. And I mean, he is just smashing benchmarks and records left, right, and center. He has scored 40 goals and 8 assists in 30 games for Dortmund and Salzburg this season, including 6 hat-tricks. He has scored 12 goals in 8 games for Dortmund, which weren't full appearances. He has scored 10 goals in 7 Champions League appearances, and all that in 1,993 minutes. So that's roughly 1 goal every 50 minutes. And since turning pro, he has averaged 1.16 goals per game. And that's, to me, just outrageous. And for Salzburg, his goals per game average was 1.56. And currently for Dortmund, it's around 2.05 goals per game. So these stats are via fbref.com. And I don't know how complete their data set is, especially when it comes to his previous clubs. But from the data you have, that's just mightily impressive. And I have not even factored in the scoring and assisting stats together. So right now at Dortmund, he is above 2, which obviously will regress to the mean. But if the mean is 1.56, then that's just crazy. And then we obviously can talk about him becoming one of the best strikers in the world. So that's just outrageous to me. I don't really have any other words for that, Lars. I mean, you have already waxed about him, and So I think the main message here is for every Dortmund fan, enjoy it while it lasts. I think we'll get right about 1.5 seasons out of him when when the release clause is triggerable. I don't know if that's a word, but everyone knows what it means. I think he will be gone off to one of the biggest clubs and then will have a stellar career. I don't see any other way, but for now, that's just amazing. And yeah, the movement was great. He could have even had more chances. I think in the 85th minute or so, Dortmund had another counterattack where he could have squared it off or shoot it himself, and then Pavlenka saved it. But looking forward to the next games, I think he will make the difference a lot of times for Dortmund. But obviously the bigger difference for Dortmund is being made by their defense, and I think we can say that the last 3 games have been quite solid. Obviously we have talked about the introduction of Emre Can and Erling Haaland, but we also have to state that these 3 defensive performances correlate at least with the absence of Manuel Akanji, Marco Reus and Julian Brandt. So I wanted to ask you what you make of this.
I mean, Roman Bürki gave an interview to German TV station Sky, I think yesterday, but they've kind of published it over the course of today, for the most part anyway. And he was obviously asked about Emre Can as well. And he said, while he's added this and that, and also was obviously very positive about the impact Can has had at Dortmund, he also said that he's not a fan of putting it all on one player and making it out to be, the impact of one player making all the difference. And I mean, even if you group up 3 guys as you did with Akanji, Brandt and Reus, I think that's still, as you said, more correlation than causation. Bürki credits mostly a better awareness of the entire team and praising attacking players such as Jadon Sancho and Torgan Hazard for, contributing more to defending as a team and having more of a defensive mindset, as well as, going forward and trying to score all these goals, which they are still doing, more or less anyway. I think the test is going to be when Favre makes changes to this setup. If, for example, Brandt were to play instead of Can or next to Can instead of Witzel, how things would look then. Obviously, the onus would be on the guys coming in, which is something I wrote about today, to show that this stability isn't personnel related, but, more of a team effort in the truest sense of the word. So that's certainly something to, look forward to, because I'm pretty sure we are going to see some changes for the Freiburg game and certainly, the week after. I mean, that's really looking quite daunting with Gladbach, Paris and Schalke in a span of 7 days. I mean, that's as tough as it gets, for Dortmund. This season, I don't quite remember whom they played before the Bayern game. I think there was a Champions League game against Inter, perhaps. But as it turns into the meaty part of the season, I think there's certainly something to be said for the current setup. But I mean, we all know that at Dortmund the next injury is never far away, so it would be quite problematic if it all boils down to, a couple of players in terms of individual personnel decisions.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. In the end, it comes down to the entire collective and the next man up mentality. So Lucien Favre didn't really want to talk about players that didn't train during the press conference. So we had to read tea leaves a little bit, but I think I've read on Twitter that there were a couple of players that didn't fully train this week, including Haaland, Hazard, Brandt, Bürki and Hitz. So that led to some already fantasize about Ölschlegel and Unbehauen. I'm not sure if it's really that acute, but we'll find out on Saturday, I guess. But Lars, since you've already written a whole piece about it, How do you think Favre will change, and do you see changes necessary here and there against Freiburg?
I'm iffy on the necessary part, actually. I mean, as far as schedules go for Dortmund in 2020, it's been decent enough. I mean, they've had 2 midweek fixtures over the first 2 months, and the next one isn't for 2 weeks because they're out of the cup already. The international break is at the end of March. So, I mean, it hasn't been particularly stressful for these players, compared to, other teams. I mean, we've talked about Thomas Tuchel last week complaining about Paris having twice the amount of fixtures already that Dortmund have had. And the same can be said for a team like Frankfurt. In 3 weeks, they will have played, I think 4 more games than Dortmund, or 3 more games. So, in terms of, managing the strain on the players' bodies and stuff, I don't really see a huge necessity to make changes, but obviously the week that I mentioned before is coming into focus, and you will probably have to make changes at some point during that week. So you want also the players that might be coming in then to have some semblance of rhythm. And the only chance to get that is basically now against Freiburg, which is also, with all due respect to Christian Streich and his team, obviously the kind of opponent where you would think going in, you might be okay without playing, 11 out of 11, A-team members at the moment.
Yeah, so how do you think Julian Brandt will rotate back into the team after his injury? Do you foresee Lukas Piszczek being dropped and Emre Can rotating on the right back position, where I think Dortmund originally planned him for, sort of, but or do you think that you just bench Can altogether and just put him next to Witzel, or maybe Can and Brandt, or bench Hazard and then put Brandt in there? Several options. Where do you see him?
I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't start, just because there's so many options that Favre might not be able to choose. I mean, I can't really see, even though I want to see Can playing in defense, because, as you said, that was reportedly anyway the big plan when he signed, and it's also I'm maintaining that opinion. It's by far his best chance at regular game time for Germany, which is mentioned to be one of the main reasons why Can chose to join Dortmund in the first place. So I would really like to see that. And Freiburg, as I said, is kind of an opponent where you could probably get away with it, even if it doesn't work, extremely well in the first game. I mean, Freiburg are going to be without Luca Waldschmidt, it seems, who is probably their most dangerous attacker, I would say, as was also evidenced in the first game between these two sides in the Hinrunde. But, there's something to be said for rhythm and stability also in terms of Can in midfield, which is certainly going to be Dortmund's lineup against Paris, which is kind of the game that I guess the next few weeks more or less revolve around, just by the nature of the importance of a Champions League knockout tie. There's no second chance at that, as opposed to a Bundesliga game where even if you drop points against Gladbach, I mean, you still have 9 games then left, I believe. So we'll see about that defense or midfield question for Can, but I wouldn't be shocked either to see just Brandt as in a more attacking role. I mean, we've mentioned last week that with the wingbacks providing width in this new system, which isn't so new anymore, the outside attackers or wingers aren't really sticking to the touchline anymore, so they are more playing the inside channels. I mean, Sancho has almost played like a secondary striker these last few games, so I think that's the kind of role where Brandt doesn't necessarily get to play out of play all of his strengths, but I mean, he's still very good in that sense as well, and has enough experience also from the left wing cutting inside to make an impact there.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Overall, I would say I don't think in a game like that you necessarily need the Witsel-Can double pivot. I still do like Julian Brandt as the number 8. And, if you don't really have to solidify the defense that much, maybe I'm wrong here, but I still think that if you have a Witsel-Brandt partnership in midfield, that's fine too. And then you can put Can either as a right back or bench him, because Can obviously needs to, I don't know if you can just play him so often that considering how little he has played for Juventus this season, you get
and considering his playing style as well. I mean,
yes, exactly.
He throws himself into every duel. He's making last-ditch tackles. He's fouling quite a bit and getting fouled. So, I mean...
and getting away with fouls, even better.
I mean, in terms of, level of interest, I think the most fun thing would be a Brandt-Can partnership, because we haven't seen that. And Witsel also, especially last season, showed some signs of fatigue in the second half of the season. Obviously, he had a longer winter break than most during his because of his fall. I might have even been still November. But that would probably be what I would most want to see outside of Can playing in defense.
Yeah, Axel Witsel is desperately in need for a rest, I would say. I don't know when that's supposed to come, but it needs to come at some point, because as you said, the next game will be the next week will be very tough afterwards, and you can just play everyone in every game. So you really have to choose your battles there. So I'm really intrigued what Favre will do in Gladbach, considering that the next 2 games are maybe even more important for Dortmund. Who knows how they prioritize that? We'll see, I guess. But yeah, so Dortmund play Freiburg, who right now are 9th place, who have 9 wins, 6 draws and 8 defeats. And Dortmund obviously hold the longest unbeaten streak of any club in the Bundesliga against Freiburg with 17 games, which is 14 wins and 3 draws. And Dortmund have only lost 1 game in their last 19 at home to Freiburg. And obviously Dortmund,
I think that's one game ever losing at home to Freiburg.
Yes, from all 19 home games, they've only lost 1, which I think came around 2002 or 2001.
It was 2001. It was a Sunday. I don't know why I remember this so well. We talked about this the last time when they've played Freiburg. It was a Sunday. I was listening to it on the radio. I remember this so vividly because it was.
You watched Sendung mit der Maus before.
No. It was the day of elections in Berlin. I don't live in Berlin, and it's doesn't. I mean, I was 12 years old then, so local elections weren't necessarily my kind of thing. But I do for some reason remember it so well. And the funniest thing, I mean, it's not necessarily funny, but an anecdote anyway, is that Sebastian Kehl was still playing and actually scored in the 90th minute, but for Freiburg. That's how long ago that was.
Jeez, yeah. So forever. Yeah. Anyway, so Dortmund's still the only team without a home loss this season, which is a nice record to keep, I would say, throughout the entire season. And Freiburg have only gotten 4 points out of their last 5 games and failed to score in 3 of them. So they're not in the best form, and obviously only 1 win out of their 9 away games and only 1 clean sheet all season, which I think came on match day 4. So, going through the stats, which were, I think, provided by Opta somewhere, that all points in a nice direction for Dortmund. And there's even more. In the last 12 games, they only scored 3 goals from open play, 8 set-piece goals, which is the Bundesliga low. So there you go. Freiburg right now, maybe not in the Breisgau Brasilianer mode. So yeah, I don't know what to expect of them, to be honest. Christian Streich usually finds a way to lose to Dortmund. So the draw, the 2-2 draw earlier this season was kind of surprising in that regard. But, Dortmund being Dortmund, I think. Was it an own goal? No, that wasn't Frankfurt, but it was
there were 2 own goals.
Oh, really?
During that 3-game spell of 2-2 draws against Frankfurt, Bremen and Freiburg, Dortmund actually managed to score 2 own goals.
Oh, great.
Delaney against Frankfurt, and I think might have even been Hummels, or maybe they counted it on Bürki in Freiburg.
Yeah, it was like a scramble in the box because Dortmund failed to put any pressure on the opponent, which was like the bane of our existence back then. How passive and bodiless Dortmund played once they had a lead, which was just absolutely terrible. I mean, Axel Witsel scored such a nice goal in that game, but it didn't pan out to be rewarded with all 3 points. So I think if I counted correctly, Dortmund now from the spell of the Rückrunde, they have gotten 15 out of 18 possible points. I think at the same time in the Hinrunde, they have had 11 out of possible 18. So right now they are 4 points better. And, obviously you can increase it by even 2 more points. So, which would be nice. 18 points out of a possible 21. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I personally don't know too many things to say about Freiburg and how they play because I don't watch them that much. So if you have anything to say in terms of strengths and weaknesses, be my guest. I can tell you that Niels Petersen is their most prolific scorer this season with 8 goals, and Luca Waldschmidt, who you've mentioned before, has scored 5. So there you go.
Yeah, but Waldschmidt obviously was injured for a prolonged time after kind of a nasty collision on Germany duty. I think against Argentina in Dortmund even, but I'm not necessarily positive on that. But I mean, he's also out, as I said, against Dortmund on Saturday, most likely anyway. So, nothing to worry about in that regard. I'm not necessarily a Freiburg expert, though I will pat myself on the back and say that I predicted, Freiburg having trouble in the Rückrunde. But that was mostly just, rehashing some expected goals stats where Freiburg have registered quite terribly this season. I think, Understat had them as like the 3rd or 4th worst team in the league, during the winter break. Obviously they were quite close to, the European spots at that time. They still aren't, completely out of that race, if you like. But I mean, as you've kind of pointed out, their pretty bad spell of form in the second half of the season was kind of that typical regression to the mean kind of thing, where in the first half of the season they won points they shouldn't have won, and now they have some of these games where perhaps they deserve a point or even 3 and don't get them. I watched Christian Streich's press conference, or at least parts of it, today for an article, and he was talking about the Düsseldorf game quite a bit, where Freiburg just didn't show up in the first half, apparently. I mean, obviously I didn't watch it because it was simultaneous to Dortmund, and even if it wasn't, I'm not usually about watching Freiburg versus Düsseldorf, just as a general rule in life. Don't watch Freiburg versus Düsseldorf unless you are Freiburg fan or Düsseldorf fan or get paid to do it, which in this case I wasn't. So he said that there was just something missing. He didn't really give any detail as to what that might have been, but in the second half he was really pleased with their reaction. And if they show the same attitude and, awareness to go into duels and play with the required toughness, but fair toughness. I mean, he doesn't want his players to just hack down Dortmund, but, get stuck in. He's apparently optimistic to be able to perhaps take something away. But then again, I mean, you've mentioned, and we've talked about them beating Dortmund in Dortmund once and, not necessarily winning a lot of points through draws either. So this might have been what we in Germany call Zweckoptimismus.
Yeah, I guess. So my prediction for this game is a 3-0 Dortmund win. What's yours?
4-1.
All right. So before we wrap up, there's one last subject we have to cover because we have repeatedly been asked, and that is the controversy between Dortmund and Hoffenheim, where now it has been decided that Dortmund fans will be disallowed to travel to Hoffenheim games and will have to reimburse the club, I think, for the next 2 away games, if I'm not mistaken. Lars, do you have more information on the subject to explain to me and our listeners who might have not read about it yet, what exactly happened and why?
Well, first of all, not the Dortmund fans have to reimburse Hoffenheim. That would be quite problematic. It's obviously the club itself.
Well, there have been individual punishments too, but that's a different subject, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think most listeners will be aware of Dortmund fans' long-standing, I guess, feud with Dietmar Hopp, who basically funded Hoffenheim's rise through the leagues over the years. I mean, they are basically what we call a Dorfclub in Germany, a countryside club, not necessarily screaming pro football, but when you have a financial backer of Hopp's stature, he is I think billionaire, or might have given so much away that he's just a millionaire at this stage. That can change things quickly, and obviously Dortmund fans kind of think of themselves as the backers of tradition with good reason. Obviously, I mean, we don't have to get into all that, but we do know that Dortmund fans voice their disapproval of Hopp and his financial backing of Hoffenheim in the past in some drastic manners, which I mean I am not necessarily a fan of. I mean the most famous thing is, for one, a chant calling Dietmar Hopp a son of a whore, which, I mean, that's kind of almost football language, even if I don't like it. That's not something that you would get, an away ban for 2 years for, but obviously continued use of that chant and banners showing him in, what's Fadenkreuz in English, Stefan?
Crosshair.
In the crosshairs, right. I mean, that has been taking place for several years now, and Hopp obviously has gone the way of going to court over stuff like that, which I think people will find is a good example of the Streisand effect. But I digress. So the thing is that Dortmund were already punished by a 3-year away ban in 2018, I think. And as we said last week, or I think we said in the pre-show talk only, that was a suspended sentence, and the suspension almost, if you like, has now been rescinded. So Dortmund are, the quote from the Sports Tribunal chairman Hans Lorenz reads as follows: "After the continued abuse of Dietmar Hopp, the withdrawal of the suspended sentence was inevitable as a consequence of the previous judgment from November the 2nd, 2018. So basically, as I explained in a lot of words, we already knew this was coming, and after Dortmund's fans once again, I guess, misbehaved in the eyes of the authorities in December in Dortmund's 2-1, I think, defeat at Hoffenheim, it was clear that this kind of punishment would come. And obviously, it's kind of a big deal not having away fans in the stadium 2 years in a row. And obviously also Dortmund have, as we said, to reimburse Hoffenheim for the lack of money coming in from away fans, even though I'm not sure if they aren't allowed to just put home fans in the away section of their stadium. But I mean, I don't really know how these things work.
Do you have an opinion on this entire kerfuffle?
I mean, as I said, I don't necessarily agree with the way Dortmund fans have voiced their disapproval. I mean, the chant I don't really have much of an issue with, because most fans will know that Dortmund are called sons of whores collectively every week. and it's kind of folklore and grandfathered in. I mean, nobody's taking issue with that for some reason, but when it's against one rich white man, suddenly it's a huge issue, and you know, a sign of general societal problems or whatever. Yeah, I mean, the Crosshairs banner is the one thing that I would just like to see discontinued, because, you know, it's quite distasteful, especially now that in Germany there have been a number of mostly right-wing terrorist attacks over the last few years where people were gunned down. I mean, I don't agree with people saying that showing Hop in the crosshairs is basically asking for him to be murdered. I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but still, I mean, the connotations of gun violence, I think that's something that people would be wise to just completely avoid.
Yeah, I will just sign my name under everything you just said, because I wholeheartedly agree. So I think we can knock it on the head here. Before we go, I want to give a little plug to the Bundesliga Bulletin from Abel Mescharos, who is having, I think, a podcast interview with our Konstantin Eckner about tactics. So if you have 5 hours, go ahead and listen
to the intro.
Yeah, just to the intro, obviously. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to give that a quick plug, since it's our own Konstantin and our own Abel who are, I don't know, nerding out, I guess. So there's that. And obviously, Lars, please tell our listeners how to get in touch with you.
People can find me on Twitter at Lars Pollmann, where I will send, a collection of links from time to time to pieces I write for Fußball.news. And if you don't read German, you can use DeepL.com, which is a translation service, which isn't paying me, but I'm still going to endorse it because it serves me quite well and works much better, in my opinion, anyway, than, Bing or Google Translate.
Very well. So without any further ado, here is our interview with Jamie McAllister. Welcome back, and I am now joined by Jamie McAllister from Coventry, England, and he is 19 years old and he is 100% blind, and against FC Union Berlin, which was a fine 5-0 win for Dortmund, he had the pleasure of visiting the Westfalenstadion and experiencing a match day quite near to the Yellow Wall. Jamie, hello and welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm good to be on. I'm looking forward to it.
You are on Twitter, obviously, at BlindFootyFan, and this is how your journey basically started, at least according to the video that Borussia Dortmund posted, since they covered your trip, or at least your visit to the stadium.
All because of one tweet. That was it. It was just lifted from there. It was quite a fast-paced journey, I suppose, from that very point.
So you had a nice weekend in Dortmund. How many days were you there?
I was got there early Friday morning and left Sunday evening. So yeah, I've got a good 2.5 days. Got plenty of things packed into the weekend. But yeah, it was an amazing weekend. I loved it.
The entire time you were accompanied by Justin?
That's it, Justin, yeah, who I've go to Coventry games and stuff like that in obviously my hometown with him all the time. So yeah, me and him we're like attached to the hip, so we're pretty close. So we know each other's ways, and he knows the best way to look after me. And yeah, we couldn't have gone with a better person.
How exactly is your relationship with Justin? How long do you know each other? How did you find each other? How did this all come about?
It's funny actually. We've only actually knew each other for just under a year now, and we met through basically at the start of the football season, I was looking to go to Coventry games, and I needed someone to come with me because I don't really have anyone in my family that's as kind of into football as I am. So I did a similar thing to what I did with Dortmund actually, and put a tweet out, and this was like back in May or June now, and came of that, and then literally from there we've just gone to games, not just football games. We've gone, just generally social occasions, and we've gelled pretty quickly, to be honest. And he's really pulled me into kind of that footballing community and made me feel welcome, and made sure people know who I am and know my situation, and make sure everyone looks after me. So mine and his relationship is something that I haven't really kind of experienced throughout my life, really. Somewhat other than people in my family, it's a special relationship that me and him have, I think, and I appreciate it a lot, to say the least.
Yeah, that's obviously awesome. What I find quite amazing these days is how easily you can communicate with other people on your phone, given that you can't see. I've seen in the comments, people being very ignorant about it, and basically, asking themselves or you how you possibly can read and understand what they're saying. But I think modern technology makes that quite accessible, and it's even better that it works via Twitter. So since I'm on Twitter a lot, and apparently you are too. Before we talk about football, just out of interest, how do you experience Twitter, and can it get stressful scrolling through all these tweets without any vision?
I think it can be frustrating at points, especially when a particular tweet or just any social media really relies on like a video or a picture of any sort. But it requires a lot of patience, because you have to, when I was scrolling through tweets, you have to listen to everything. You have to listen to the name of the person, then their whole tweet, and if you want to know when it was tweeted and how many likes, retweets, and replies it's got. And you have to be patient with it. But at the end of the day, I think I've kind of got that patient with it, because I know if I do, then I'm going to benefit from it. So things like Twitter and Facebook and all that, they're really accessible. It's all down to the what's the word, the people who create the websites, the app developers and stuff like that, who it's up to them to make it accessible. And people on Twitter and that have made it as accessible as possible. And that's why I'm being able to have all these opportunities like I'm doing now, having to go to Germany and stuff like that. So yeah, and regarding the people as well, I think I wouldn't say it's because 99% of the time I wouldn't say it's because they're a bad person. I'd just say they're not particularly educated on that particular subject. And usually when someone asks me how I use my phone and I tell them, they kind of get the gist of it. But yeah, it's all a learning curve for me, as well as everyone else, who I speak to and that. But yeah, you can't really do much about those people. They just have to, know when to say something and know when not to. But what can you do with stuff like that, really?
All right. So then to the big question, which obviously interests everyone: how did you fall in love with football?
It's kind of split, really. When I was younger, when I had eyesight, I've only really been blind for 3 years maybe. And I wasn't actually, when I actually had sight, I wasn't massively into football. I paid attention to it. I knew what was going on. I knew players, I knew where everyone was and whatever. But it was only when I kind of started to lose my sight, and I was looking for things to do that I can still enjoy and go along with, despite having no sight. And football was the first thing. And then going to games, and just, it's like I said in the video, in the Dortmund video, it's the atmosphere that gets me. That really pulls me in, and the emotional roller coaster that supporting your club sends you on, whether whether you're having a bad season or a good season. It's the emotional connection that I get with my local team, Coventry, as well as Borussia Dortmund. And yeah, it's literally all down to the atmosphere and the people and just the pure emotion. Not even just from the people you see, obviously, who have sight and that are games. It's just you don't get anything like it from anything else. The pure joy that you see from someone when their team scores and you're hugging a stranger or you jumping about going crazy. It's not something you get from much, from other hobbies. So it's all down to the atmosphere and the people that really, pulled me into football and made me love it to the extent that I do now.
Yeah, I think you were quoted in the video saying that you don't particularly care too much about trophies, but rather the feeling and the atmosphere over the 90 minutes. And there are obviously fewer better places to be than the Westfalenstadion. So
100%.
Tell me how you arrived in Dortmund on Friday, what you do. I think from the photos on your Twitter account, I can see you did a stadium tour.
That's it. Yeah, as soon as we got there, we got into Dortmund and then literally within half an hour we were at the stadium. Me and Justin were being shown around by the tour guide. And for a good hour that was, and we had time to talk with the tour guide. He told us about particular things. We managed to get pictures, and it was kind of setting us up for the game really, because obviously I got a good feeling of the stadium, obviously empty, nothing's going on, and it kind of just set us up, like it pumped us up really. And so this obviously, from what Justin was telling me, the stadium is just amazing to look at, whether you're outside or you're in wherever, whether it's the changing rooms or the tunnel. And some of the things in that stadium are just like they're just perfect. Like we went through, so for example, we went to the tunnel where the players come out, and the guide played the music, the music what the players hear when they walk onto the pitch, and that was like it just made us laugh, because it was just the adrenaline that it sends through you. And that was just, we walked down the tunnel with that, with obviously no one in the stadium. So to imagine that with the players and walk out to 81,000 fans just making an absolute racket. It really just it sends shivers down your spine for things like that. So just small things like that just really, set us both up for what was to come.
So overall, how did you like Dortmund? How did you get around the city before the game?
I love Dortmund. It was just the people that I couldn't have been with nicer people. Everyone was welcoming. Everyone was helpful, considerate. Food was nice. The beer it was really nice and cheap. And we actually met two locals, a wife and a husband, who I'd been in contact with on Twitter. So they definitely helped us along. They took us on the Friday night. They took us into the city centre. So we went to I can't remember the actual name of it now. The pre-game show that you have at the Fan World on the Friday evening. So we went to that and listened to what they had to say there, and we went to the merchandise shop. Got my Dortmund top and stuff like that, and then we met the locals. They took us to the city centre and showing us places to eat and just kind of educating us on the city really. And they definitely, we probably would have been lost without them, because they shown us the ways of the city and where to go and stuff like that. And they were with us the Friday and the Saturday. So a massive thanks to Nicole and her husband Derek for that. That was very nice of them to take us in like that.
Yeah, great stuff. And so the next morning, I assume you had butterflies and were pretty excited about the game. Justin,
yeah,
I assume as well. From what I know, it was also his first Dortmund game. So, what do you do ahead of the game to get yourselves in the mood? I assume more beer.
Not so much in the morning. We got up in the morning, had breakfast. It was kind of a bit surreal, thinking, in a few hours' time, we'd be in that stadium. We kind of just did a normal thing, to be honest, like you do if you're just on like a holiday or something. We didn't really try not to think about it too much. And then it came to like kind of, early afternoon, and we went down to the hotel lobby and we met Nadine, who was kind of I don't know, like our person that helped us throughout the whole time we were there, and then two cameramen, and it was from that point really that kind of the feeling started to come, and that's when we realised, this is it's starting now from like 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is what we came for. So yeah, it was from that point onwards that butterflies definitely started to come.
Yeah, what's nice about Dortmund, and I think it's a little bit different in the Bundesliga in general, fans come to the games quite early, so there's already a very good crowd in and around the ground 2 or 3 hours before a game.
We definitely realised that. Yeah, so it was. Me and Justin were looking, and it was. We got to the ground about 2 o'clock, 2:15. And the thing that amazed us, obviously, there's thousands of fans, but they're all mixed together. So you have, the Dortmund and the Union Berlin fans just talking with, glasses, bottles of beer, just as if it's nothing. We were saying to each other, you wouldn't get that in England anywhere. You wouldn't get the fans mixing, and you wouldn't get, just drinking out of glass bottles, because the whole kind of thing around English football fans and all that kind of stuff. It was good. I enjoyed it because it was really nice to see. It's something that should be, should happen much more in football, and it really gets you into the mood when you can hear, just thousands of people, and we've seen the club coach arrive and stuff like that. So it really does get you into that football field, and just being outside the stadium even that long before the actual game kicks off.
So before we talk about the actual game, I have to ask, did you have any pre-game food? If so, what do you have and how did you like it?
Didn't have much. We had a pre-game beer. Pre-game beer at the ground.
All right, I guess that counts as liquid bread. So you've been seated next to other blind fans, I presume, because Dortmund have a section for disabled people and obviously blind people. Yeah. I think where you, as a German blind fan, you have headphones that are hooked up to someone who actually commentates the game for you and describes it, dedicated for blind people, which I think is an awesome service.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I assume you didn't have that service available, so Jamie was helping you. But overall, just talk about how you got there, how excited you were, and when the first time you heard the yellow wall roar, because that's usually about half hour or so before the game when you can feel that first roar that really like pierces your gut.
As soon as we got close to the ground, we went across. There's like a bridge that we went across, and once we got over to the side of that particular bridge, that's when you started to see the yellow and the red from what Justin was describing to me. All the fans, everything, and you got that feeling. And before the game, I did the interviews, so what you've seen in that video. Stood around every 10 minutes, so I did them, and then we got into the actual ground and sat down, and that really surprised me when I didn't know that I was going to be sitting in that particular section. I knew where we were sitting, like it'd be next to, quite close to the yellow wall, and pretty much at the front of the thing. And Justin was saying to me, like, there's someone there with a white cane, or there's people. I was kind of a bit shocked, because it's not often that I do something, especially in the football in England. I've never came across a person who's into football like I am and is also visually impaired / blind. So to be around a number of people that are in a similar situation as me was quite, I liked it because it really, made you feel, like you're not the only one. And to be that close to the yellow wall, and like you said, about half an hour, 45 minutes before the game, they start and that's it. You don't hear them. There's no silence after that. And, leading up to kickoff, it was definitely just sending shivers down my spine. And from just before kickoff, and they did, You'll Never Walk Alone. That was when it really hit me. I think that's when I kind of realised where I was and what kind of atmosphere I'm about to witness. So it's one of the best build-ups to a game, probably the best build-up to a game I've ever witnessed and experienced firsthand.
So overall, you were in luck because people who were at the game said on that day that the atmosphere was particularly good for a Bundesliga game against a team which is not, Schalke or Bayern or anything. So in that particular way, you were pretty lucky. Also, that the score was 5-0, and that after the game you had Neven Subotic coming to the yellow wall, which was another emotional moment. But So how did you experience this game overall? You have the advantage as to nobody else who can see. You do not have to watch Dortmund defend set pieces, so that's a very big positive. But obviously, apart from that, how do you experience the game itself on the pitch? I assume since you were able to see before, you obviously know the mechanics of the game and how it works. Yeah. So how big of a help is Justin in that respect, and how detailed is his recapture, let's say, of the game, and how much do you even want to hear of the game, or do you just want to listen to the crowd react to what is happening on the field? What are your preferences there?
Yeah, it's all subjective to the person I'm with, really. Some people give a quite a detailed description, frequently throughout the whole game or what's going on. Some people give next to nothing, and then Justin kind of gives me the significant parts. When there's a corner, or if either team are on the attack, or free kick, just significant parts that could lead to something. It's all it doesn't bother me whoever I'm with. But I'm just there, like you said, for the atmosphere. I'm really feeling off that. I'm listening to that, and it's different, really. Sitting there as I said in the video, I could sit there for a Dortmund game and enjoy it without having to be involved in the actual atmosphere. Whereas when I'm in England, I feel like I need to be amongst it and be involved in it. And I can usually tell what's going on the pitch, even if I have no description from the person I'm with, just by the comments that are being made by fans around me and the general reaction. But the German football fans are different in that respect, which is a good thing, because England fans tend to be that bit more, from my experience anyway, tend to be that bit more abusive from even the smallest of things, whereas I didn't hear anything like that.
Well, I guess that's just where you sat, maybe, because that depends quite a lot, because there are very abusive fans on any given place in the stadium. But yeah, I've had different experiences with that too. But what I wanted to ask you is, there is a big difference in fan culture, obviously, between German fans and obviously Dortmund ultras and English fans in general, and that's just that ultras have their own sort of vocals and songs they sing throughout the 90 games that don't necessarily have too much to do with the game itself, and it's sort of like a noise carpet they lay around the entire game. So the positive is obviously the team is supported for the entire 90 minutes, but the negative is it kills the spontaneous chants that we hear in English stadiums, which are often quite witty and funny. And it's sometimes a bit disconnected from the game. So I wanted to know how you perceive that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, a lot of England fans sing whether what's going on the pitch. So if something happens on the pitch with a particular player, you most likely hear a song about that player. Whereas in Germany and in Dortmund, the fans, which is obviously a good thing, the fans just sing from minute one right to the end. And obviously, my German isn't that great, so I couldn't really understand the actual songs that were being sung. But the feeling of it, yeah, you can definitely say that they're there to support. And the people that we were with explained to us the whole ultra situation. How you have 3 different groups and they have different, different stands on certain things. But yeah, I do like that. They just pick a song spontaneously and that's it. They stick with it for the next 10 minutes. I did enjoy that, and that made it a bit more enjoyable and feel that bit more better amongst throughout the game. And it was enjoyable just to sit there and listen to the fans sing. Well, I didn't really know what they were saying. I could just sit there and just smile and just enjoy myself.
Yeah, for many people, I mean, they describe it a bit like a drug. So I assume for you it's similar. So is this something you will seek out to do more often, just because it's such an adrenaline rush?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like once you've done it and you've experienced it and you enjoyed it, like I did, it's something you're eager to get back out there. Like I said to Justin on the way back, so we're going back there this season, so I've got to get back there. I can't. It's just, it's a feeling that only football fans know, and it's hard to describe, really. But yeah, it definitely is a drug and something that it's hard to repeat in any other kind of field.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm trying to think of events where you could have a similar feeling, but I guess there's just nothing quite like it. So, how did you perceive the game? I mean, you were very close to the pitch. That probably means you heard, the ball being passed around, and I guess maybe even the impact of tackles. Is this something you sort of something you try to take in even more, or are you more focused on what fans around you are doing?
Yeah, I'd probably say it's more focused on what's being said to me by Justin and the general feeling amongst the fans. It was quite surreal though, because we were sitting there, and it shows it in the video. We were sitting there, me and Justin, and then it was quite early on in the game, wasn't it? And just Sancho got the ball. And Justin actually got his phone out just to simply record Sancho on the ball, really. And next thing we know, he's in goal, he's on goal, and he's got one. And it's kind of like, I was thinking in my head, like, Jadon Sancho just scored like right in front of me. It was like,
yeah, it was literally right in front of you.
Good feeling. But yeah, it was, I just feed off what people are telling me and, the fans as a whole, instead of just kind of trying to guess what's going on the pitch.
So who's your favorite player?
I think I'd have to say, although Jadon Sancho's English and he's one of the best young players in the world, I'd have to say Marco Reus. I've always, obviously he's my favourite player before Sancho joined, and he's had his rough times with injuries over the years. Obviously missed the World Cup in 2014 and stuff like that. And yeah, now he's back on track, it seems, and he's doing as good as he could be. And yeah, I can't miss, but it's definitely kind of him. And then there's like a number of players just below, but all on the same level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. With a team like that, with so many young players and so many good players, it's hard to kind of pick, how to kind of list them like outright. But yeah, I'm Marco, I'd say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else you want to tell our podcast listeners?
Just I suppose for people who are listening that maybe have saw my tweet, the first tweet, and then every tweet since then, I probably just want to say thank you for everyone taking me in and giving me that opportunity that, you know, I never ever expected to get, really. Like, when years ago when I watched Dortmund on TV or whatever, I'd be like, wow, you know, that stadium is something else. You know, like a lot of people, you know, think like, just one day I'll go there and whatever, but no way did I think that, you know, now I can say to anyone, yeah, I've been to that place, and that place is absolutely amazing, and the fans are incredible. How they make you feel, how they just, you really get the sense that it's all about the fans. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone, and I hope that it's the beginning of many experiences, many trips to Dortmund.
Yeah, awesome. You can find Jamie at blindfootyfan on Twitter, blindfootyfan with a Y. So, Jamie, once again, thank you very much for coming onto the show and sharing this, your weekend basically, which was a lot of fun. And obviously also thank you to Borussia Dortmund themselves for making it possible and that easy for you.
Yeah.
And shout out to Justin for...
Definitely, shout out to everyone, Justin, Nicole, her husband, the club, everyone just made it a weekend I could never forget, really. So thank you to you as well for allowing me to come on here and talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and back to the show. And that's the show. Again, thank you to Lars, and obviously, please again find him at Lars Pollmann if you want on Twitter. You can find me at Stefan Butzko, and if you want to get in touch with all of us, send us a question or anything along those lines, please do that via Twitter and Facebook at Yellowwallpod. And if you want to contribute to this show financially or sponsor an episode, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for all information. If you want to read our written content and access the paywall, please go to theyellowwall.net, where you can also find all the various means to subscribe to this podcast, which you will find on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, SoundCloud, and all the other services. And with that, as always, thank you for listening. Goodbye until next week.